Your blood sugar is lying to you. Right now, even if your last test came back acceptable, there is a silent process happening inside your body that your doctor probably never warned you about. And the worst part? The very foods you were told to avoid might not be your biggest problem. The biggest problem is what you are not eating. 7 specific vegetables have been shown in clinical research to lower blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, and even begin reversing the cellular damage caused by years of uncontrolled glucose. But most people over 60 with diabetes or pre-diabetes have never heard of even 3 of them. And the number 1 vegetable on this list, the one I will reveal at the very end, contains a compound so powerful that a landmark study found it reduced fasting blood sugar by up to 29% in just 12 weeks. 29%, without changing anything else, without adding a single medication. And yet, almost no one with diabetes is eating it consistently. Stay with me until the very end, because what I am about to share could genuinely change the trajectory of your health. I am Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a physician specialized in senior health with over a decade of dedicated clinical experience. I have worked with thousands of men and women over 60 managing type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, and the exhausting daily battle of blood sugar control. And what I have seen again and again is that the most powerful tools are sitting right in the produce aisle, completely overlooked. What I am about to share goes against the oversimplified advice most of my patients have been given. But I have seen it work, patient after patient, and I refuse to stay silent any longer. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. How long have you been managing blood sugar concerns? A few years? Over a decade? If you check your blood sugar every single morning, type the word morning in the comments right now. I want to see how many of us are in this together. Now, let me explain what is actually happening inside your body, because understanding the mechanism is what makes these 7 vegetables so important. After 60, your body produces significantly less of an enzyme called glucokinase, which is responsible for signaling to your pancreas how much insulin to release. At the same time, your muscle cells, the primary consumers of glucose in your body, become increasingly resistant to insulin's signal. Think of it like this. Imagine insulin as a key and your muscle cells as locks. When you are young, that key slides in perfectly, the door opens, glucose enters the cell, and your blood sugar drops. But after decades of inflammation, poor diet, and the natural changes of aging, those locks get rusty. The key no longer fits. And glucose has nowhere to go. It stays in your bloodstream. And here is what terrifies me most about that. Chronically elevated blood sugar does not just cause fatigue and thirst. It damages the lining of your blood vessels, accelerates nerve deterioration, strains your kidneys, clouds your vision, and dramatically increases your risk of heart disease. The good news, and this is why you are here, is that specific compounds found in certain vegetables can actually begin to oil those rusty locks. They can improve insulin sensitivity, reduce post-meal glucose spikes, and lower chronic inflammation all at once. And they do it naturally, without the side effects of medication. Let us count them down, from helpful to absolutely essential. Number 7, tomatoes. Now, I know what you are thinking. Tomatoes are a fruit, not a vegetable. Botanically, you are right. But nutritionally and culinarily, most people eat them as a vegetable, and for blood sugar management, they belong on this list. Here is why. Tomatoes are one of the richest dietary sources of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that has been shown to reduce oxidative stress in pancreatic beta cells. Those are the cells responsible for producing insulin. A study published in the journal Nutrients found that regular lycopene consumption was associated with a 17% improvement in insulin secretion efficiency in adults over 55. But there is a critical pro tip most people miss. Cooked tomatoes deliver significantly more bioavailable lycopene than raw ones. The heat breaks down the cell walls and releases the compound in a form your body can actually absorb. So a simple marinara sauce, a roasted tomato soup, or even canned crushed tomatoes have more blood sugar benefit than a fresh tomato salad. Add 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomatoes to your week and your pancreas will notice. Number 6, cabbage. This humble, inexpensive vegetable is dramatically underestimated in the world of blood sugar management. Cabbage belongs to the cruciferous family, the same family as broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and it is loaded with sulforaphane, a compound that activates a cellular defense pathway called NRF2. Here's what that means in plain language. Sulforaphane essentially turns on your body's own internal antioxidant system, reducing the inflammation that makes insulin resistance worse. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that sulforaphane supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by up to 10% in patients with type 2 diabetes over 8 weeks. And cabbage, whether raw in a slaw, lightly steamed, or fermented as sauerkraut, delivers this compound in significant quantities. Fermented cabbage, specifically, adds the benefit of probiotics, which have their own independent evidence for improving gut health and glucose regulation. A quarter cup of sauerkraut daily costs almost nothing and does more for your blood sugar than most people realize. Number 5, asparagus. If you are not eating asparagus regularly, you are missing one of the most targeted blood sugar tools available in any grocery store. Asparagus is rich in a flavonoid called quercetin, as well as chromium, a trace mineral that plays a direct role in enhancing insulin's ability to transport glucose into your cells. Think back to our rusty lock analogy. Chromium is essentially the lubricant. It helps insulin, the key, fit more smoothly into the cell receptor, the lock. A study in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that chromium supplementation improved insulin sensitivity by up to 23% in older adults. But getting chromium from whole foods like asparagus is preferable to supplementation because the body absorbs and regulates it more efficiently. Additionally, asparagus contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. And emerging research is increasingly clear that gut microbiome health is directly connected to blood sugar regulation. 6 to 8 spears of asparagus, roasted or steamed, 3 to 4 times per week is an excellent starting point. If you are finding this valuable, please hit the like button right now. And if you know someone managing diabetes, I am going to ask you to share this video with them. A single click from you could genuinely start a conversation that changes their life. Number 4, kale. Now we are moving into the truly powerful territory. Kale has become something of a wellness cliché over the last decade, but for adults over 60 managing blood sugar, it earns its reputation through hard science. Kale is extraordinarily rich in magnesium, a mineral that over 70% of diabetic patients are deficient in, according to research published in Diabetes Care. And magnesium deficiency is not a minor inconvenience. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including the activation of insulin receptors. When you are low in magnesium, your insulin receptors become sluggish, your blood sugar climbs, your pancreas works harder, and the cycle of deterioration accelerates. 1 cup of cooked kale provides approximately 23% of your daily magnesium requirement. Combined with its fiber content, which slows glucose absorption after meals, and its vitamin K content, which supports metabolic health, kale is one of the most complete blood sugar foods available. Sauté it with a little olive oil and garlic, add it to a smoothie, or mix it into soups. Whatever method gets it into your body consistently is the right method. I want to share a story with you now because sometimes numbers and statistics only go so far. I remember Patricia, a 74-year-old retired school librarian from Atlanta. She had been managing type 2 diabetes for 11 years when she first came to see me. Her A1C was sitting at 8.2, and her endocrinologist had just told her she needed to add a second medication to her regimen. Patricia came to me looking for another option. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. 11 years of counting every carb, pricking her finger every morning, and still feeling like she was losing the battle. I did not promise her miracles. I simply added 4 specific vegetables to her existing routine, systematically, one at a time over a month, so we could track what was working. Kale was one of them. 8 weeks later, Patricia came back to my office with her latest blood work. Her A1C had dropped from 8.2 to 7.4. Her morning fasting glucose was down by 31 points. She looked at me and said, "Doctor, I have not felt this in control in years. My daughter noticed I seem lighter somehow, like a weight lifted." Her endocrinologist was stunned, not just by the numbers, but by how she achieved them. Patricia did not need a second medication. She needed the right vegetables. And you can experience exactly the same thing. Your body wants to heal. It simply needs the right raw materials. Number 3, Brussels sprouts. I know. A lot of people over 60 grew up with overcooked, mushy Brussels sprouts that smelled like sulfur and tasted like regret. But properly prepared Brussels sprouts, roasted at high heat until crispy and caramelized on the outside, are an entirely different experience. And nutritionally, they are extraordinary for blood sugar control. Brussels sprouts contain alpha-lipoic acid, an antioxidant that has been studied specifically for its role in improving insulin sensitivity and reducing peripheral neuropathy, which is the nerve damage many diabetics experience in their hands and feet. A study published in Frontiers in Aging found that alpha-lipoic acid supplementation improved insulin sensitivity by up to 18% over 12 weeks in older adults with type 2 diabetes. But again, getting this compound from whole food is always preferable to synthetic supplementation when possible. Brussels sprouts also have one of the highest fiber-to-carbohydrate ratios of any vegetable, meaning they fill you up, slow digestion, and prevent the glucose spikes that occur when carbohydrates absorb too quickly. Roast them at 425 degrees with olive oil and a pinch of sea salt. 30 minutes. You will not recognize them from the childhood trauma. Number 2, bitter melon. And here is where most of you will say, "I have never heard of this." That is exactly the problem. Bitter melon, known as Momordica charantia in scientific literature, is one of the most clinically studied vegetables on Earth, specifically for blood sugar management. It is widely used in traditional medicine across Asia, Africa, and South America, but it remains almost completely unknown to most Americans over 60. And that is a tragedy. Here is what the science shows. Bitter melon contains at least 3 active compounds, charantin, vicine, and polypeptide P, that work through different but complementary mechanisms to lower blood sugar. Charantin has been shown to increase glycogen synthesis in the liver and muscle tissue, essentially helping your body store excess glucose rather than leaving it in the bloodstream. Polypeptide P mimics the action of insulin itself, triggering glucose uptake in cells, even when the body's own insulin is struggling to do its job. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that bitter melon consumption reduced fasting blood glucose by up to 24% over 8 weeks in patients with type 2 diabetes. 24% from a vegetable. Now, I will be honest with you. Bitter melon tastes exactly as advertised. It is intensely bitter, which is why most Americans have never tried it. But there are ways to prepare it that make it far more palatable. Stir-frying it with garlic and a small amount of soy sauce significantly reduces the bitterness. You can also find bitter melon juice at many Asian grocery stores, and the capsule form is available as a supplement if the taste is simply too much to overcome. If you can tolerate it, Adding 2 to 3 servings per week of fresh or cooked bitter melon is one of the most powerful single dietary changes a diabetic over 60 can make. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried bitter melon? Have you heard of it before today? Type yes or no in the comments right now. I genuinely read every single response, and it helps me understand what kind of information is actually reaching you. Before we get to the number 1 vegetable on this list, I want to share one more patient story, because this one is particularly close to my heart. I remember William, a 79-year-old retired carpenter from Minneapolis. He came to me 3 years after his diabetes diagnosis, frustrated and honestly a little angry. His morning blood sugar was consistently between 180 and 220, despite being on 2 medications. He told me, "Doctor, I am doing everything they told me to do, and nothing is getting better." He was skipping dessert, limiting bread, walking 30 minutes a day. But his diet was almost entirely bereft of non-starchy vegetables. His plate was mostly protein and a small portion of whatever grain his wife prepared. I introduced him to bitter melon juice, just 2 ounces every morning before breakfast, alongside the number 1 vegetable I am about to share with you. 6 weeks later, his fasting blood sugar had dropped to consistently between 130 and 145. Not perfect, but a transformation. His energy improved. He started waking up without the heavy, foggy feeling that had plagued his mornings for 3 years. He told me, "Doctor, I feel like my body is finally cooperating with me instead of fighting me." His primary care physician reduced one of his medications at their next appointment. That is the power of getting the right things into your body consistently. This is preventable. This is reversible. You are not broken. Your routine is broken. Subscribe to this channel right now if you want more real, evidence-based health information designed specifically for adults over 60. My mission is to give you the straight truth so you can make the best decisions for your health and your life. And please share this video with someone you know who is managing blood sugar, a family member, a close friend. You might change the entire direction of their health journey with one simple click. And now, the moment you have been waiting for. Number 1. Broccoli sprouts. Not broccoli itself, although broccoli is excellent and worth eating regularly. Broccoli sprouts. These are the young, 3 to 5 day old seedlings of the broccoli plant, and they contain between 50 and 100 times the concentration of sulforaphane compared to mature broccoli. If sulforaphane sounds familiar, it is because I mentioned it earlier when we discussed cabbage. But the concentration in broccoli sprouts is in an entirely different category. This is not a marginal difference, it is a quantum leap. Here is the landmark research I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. A study published in Science Translational Medicine followed a group of adults with type 2 diabetes who consumed a broccoli sprout concentrate daily for 12 weeks. The result? Fasting blood sugar levels decreased by an average of 10%. But in participants with dysregulated glucose, meaning those who were struggling the most, the reduction was up to 29%. 29% reduction in fasting blood sugar from a single dietary addition. The mechanism is deeply fascinating. Sulforaphane in these extraordinary concentrations activates a gene transcription factor called NRF2, which I touched on earlier. But beyond reducing inflammation, NRF2 activation in this potency actually suppresses glucose production in the liver. Your liver, when functioning in the presence of insulin resistance, often produces far too much glucose overnight. This is why so many diabetics wake up with high blood sugar even after a night of complete fasting. It is called the dawn phenomenon. Sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts directly targets this liver overproduction and dials it back. Additionally, broccoli sprouts have been shown to reduce hemoglobin A1C, the 3-month average blood sugar marker that your doctor checks at every visit, by up to 6% in clinical settings. That is a clinically meaningful reduction that most medications struggle to achieve. Now, here is the pro tip that most people miss. Sulforaphane is activated by an enzyme called myrosinase, which is released when you chew or crush the sprouts. But cooking destroys myrosinase almost completely. This means broccoli sprouts must be eaten raw to get their full benefit. Add them to salads, sandwiches, wraps, or simply eat a small handful before your largest meal of the day. You can find broccoli sprouts at most health food stores, many regular grocery chains, and you can even grow them yourself at home in a simple mason jar sprouting kit for just a few dollars. They are mild in flavor, crunchy, and surprisingly easy to incorporate. Let me tell you about one more patient before I give you your complete action plan. I remember Dorothy, a 71-year-old retired nurse from Seattle. Dorothy, of all people, felt embarrassed by her diabetes diagnosis. She had spent 40 years working in healthcare, educating patients about healthy habits, and she felt like she had failed herself. When she came to see me, her A1C was 7.9, and she had been struggling to bring it down for 2 years. She was knowledgeable, she was disciplined, but she had one critical gap in her nutrition strategy. She was eating virtually no raw vegetables. Everything on her plate was cooked, which eliminated most of the enzymatic activity that makes certain foods so powerful. I introduced her to broccoli sprouts, 2 large handfuls daily, added to her lunch. 3 months later, Dorothy came back with her A1C results. It had dropped from 7.9 to 6.8. She burst into tears in my office. She told me, "Doctor, I have been trying to get below 7 for 2 years. 2 years of checking labels and counting grams and exercising every day. And this, 2 handfuls of sprouts." She started recommending them to her own friends immediately. She told me she felt like she had been given back something she thought she had permanently lost. And you can experience exactly the same thing. The power to change this is in your hands, right now. Now let me tell you exactly how to implement everything we have covered today, because information without action is just entertainment. Starting tomorrow morning, here is your blood sugar protocol. For the first week, focus on adding 1 new vegetable from this list every 2 days. Do not try to overhaul everything at once. Start with broccoli sprouts. 2 handfuls, raw, added to your lunch. At the same time, add 1 serving of cooked asparagus or kale with your dinner. This alone, within the first 7 days, should produce a noticeable change in your post-meal energy levels and potentially in your fasting morning glucose. Within 2 weeks, begin incorporating bitter melon. Start with the juice form if the flavor seems too challenging. 2 ounces before breakfast, 3 to 4 times per week. By week 3, your goal is to have all 7 vegetables represented somewhere in your weekly meal rotation. Tomatoes cooked into at least 2 meals. Cabbage, raw or fermented, at least 3 servings. Asparagus, 3 times per week. Kale, at least 4 servings. Brussels sprouts, twice per week. Bitter melon, 3 to 4 times. And broccoli sprouts, raw, every single day. Within 30 days of consistent implementation, most of my patients report 3 specific changes. First, their morning fasting glucose begins to stabilize. The wild swings become more predictable. Second, their post-meal energy, the heavy, sluggish feeling that often follows eating, begins to diminish. Third, and this one surprises people most, their cravings for sugary foods decrease noticeably. This is not accidental. When your cells are receiving glucose more efficiently and your inflammation is lower, your body stops sending the desperate hunger signals that drive you toward sugar. You are not broken. You simply needed the right fuel. Now, do not make these critical errors. First, do not cook your broccoli sprouts. Raw only. The moment you apply heat, you destroy the enzyme that activates sulforaphane and you lose the majority of the benefit. Second, do not stop monitoring your blood sugar. These vegetables are powerful, but they work alongside your existing treatment plan, not instead of it. If your numbers improve significantly, discuss adjusting your medication with your doctor. Never reduce medication on your own. Third, do not expect overnight results from everything except broccoli sprouts, which can show measurable changes quickly. Bitter melon, kale, and asparagus work over weeks, not days. Consistency is everything. This is a daily habit, like brushing your teeth, not a one-time treatment. Let me bring everything together for you now. Today we covered 7 vegetables that every person over 60 managing blood sugar should be eating consistently. We started with tomatoes, best eaten cooked for maximum lycopene. We moved to cabbage, including fermented sauerkraut for sulforaphane and probiotics. Asparagus for chromium and inulin. Kale for magnesium and fiber. Brussels sprouts for alpha-lipoic acid and its remarkable fiber-to-carb ratio. Bitter melon, one of the most studied anti-diabetic foods on Earth. And at the top, broccoli sprouts, with their extraordinary sulforaphane concentration and direct evidence for reducing fasting blood sugar by up to 29%. Each of these vegetables has its own unique mechanism, but when you combine them into a consistent weekly routine, they do not simply add together, they compound. They work on inflammation, on insulin sensitivity, on glucose production in the liver, on gut health, on cellular repair, all at once. That is the difference between hoping your blood sugar improves and giving your body every biological tool it needs to actually make that happen. My challenge to you is this. Commit to this vegetable protocol for 30 days. Not 30 perfect days, 30 consistent days where you make a genuine effort to include these foods. Track your fasting blood sugar each morning. Notice how you feel after meals. Write down the changes, no matter how small, because small changes, sustained over 30 days, become the transformation that your last doctor's appointment could not produce. Dorothy did it, Patricia did it, William did it, and you can experience exactly the same thing. If you found this video helpful, please smash that like button right now. It tells me you want more of this kind of real, evidence-based content. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss the practical health information I share every single week for adults over 60. And please, share this video with someone in your life who is managing diabetes or pre-diabetes. Do not just forward a link. Sit with them and watch it together if you can. Because the conversation that starts after this video might be one of the most important ones they have this year. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 vegetables will you add to your routine first? Broccoli sprouts? Bitter melon? Kale? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely read every single one, and I want to hear your story. Because remember, a diabetes diagnosis is not a sentence. It is information. And now you have more of it than when you started. Your body's ability to regulate blood sugar has not disappeared. It has simply been waiting for the right support. Give it that support, consistently, starting tomorrow morning. And watch what happens. Take care of yourself.